Sugar growers are become the latest industry to complain about losses coming from load shedding. They estimate that this could go all the way up to 723 million rand for this year because of the chronic power cuts. The SA Canegrowers Association is calling on government to intervene in order to cushion the industry from further damage. We can speak now to the body's chairperson, Andrew Russel. A very good evening to you, Mr. Russel. Thank you for joining us tonight. 723 million estimated losses for 2023 for you. Break down the calculation of that.
Yes, good evening. So that amount is calculated on the basis that over 1,000 sugarcane growers irrigate their crops with driven by Eskom power, and they're unable to do that effectively because of the load shedding. So there's a loss of crop due to poor growth, and in addition to that, because they're on a rural flex tariff, which would normally allow them to irrigate at low demand times at a reduced tariff, they're now no longer able to do that and have to irrigate whenever the electricity is available. So they have a considerably increased input cost as well. And that's based on the load shedding remaining in stages 4 and 5. That amount of 723 million rand is calculated to be significantly more if we move to a higher load shedding stages going forwards.
Right, 1.8 billion you say is if we were to escalate to stages 6 to 8, and then beyond that would have to look at the industry basically incurring costs or losses of up to 2.4 billion rand. I want to come back to the issue of the Ruraflex system that you're using where you'd be charged lower tariffs, and look at the expenses incurred by sugar growers in terms of energy, right? 189 million rand energy costs additional, that is, for 2023. Can all your members afford that?
No, they can't. Unfortunately, our industry has faced a number of devastating impacts over the last few years, and that is evidenced by the fact that one of our biggest milling companies, Tongaat Hewlett, has had to place themselves into business rescue. That has caused all kinds of ripple effects within the industry. We're also coping with the destructive effects of the health promotion levy, which has hampered our industry. And these losses are potentially catastrophic for small-scale growers and a large number of the industry's farm workers.
Does the power crisis in South Africa, does it threaten the existence or survival of the sugar industry at this point?
Well, it's contributing to a circumstance in which we find ourselves where our future survival is being threatened. It's not exclusively as a result of the load shedding, but certainly, if you take 700 million rand off out of potential income, it's going to have a significant effect on the sustainability of farmers who are already teetering on the brink.
Poultry farmers saying they're having to cull their output. Milk companies as well saying they're also in some areas having to get rid of their stock because fridges can't stay on 24/7, issues with generators and the cost of fuel and the like. You mentioned earlier that there's also damage to your crops, right? How have you had to work around that beyond getting additional or alternative energy supply?
Well, there's not a lot that we can do at the moment, although we would welcome engagement with government and with Eskom to find ways to mitigate the impact of load shedding. Perhaps load shedding affects all South Africans. We recognize that. But we do believe that with cooperation and collaboration, we can mitigate those impacts by looking at the scheduling and utilizing the power that could be generated from sugar mills, excess power, to help to supplement the grid.
What about jobs? How long will people's jobs survive?
Well, if there's a reduced crop, then there's less farm workers involved in producing that crop. So there's a direct and immediate impact on the harvesting and the husbandry of the sugarcane crop. So the impact would be immediate, and we are facing job losses as we go into the coming season as a consequence of the load shedding.
Is there a figure of how many people might be affected?
Well, there are over 10,000 farm workers that are employed by those 1,135 irrigated growers. Not all of those jobs are at risk, but certainly a large number of those 10,000 jobs are at risk.
So we've got, I don't know if you were able to hear earlier, the ANC is going to be discussing the issue of dealing with the energy crisis. Yesterday it held a symposium, in fact, dealing with the very crisis. And this weekend, much of that discussion is going to continue. The President delivers a State of the Nation address in early February. When that time comes, if you could make your submissions, what would you say? I know you've mentioned already working around the schedules for load shedding, but what more would you want as a perhaps more detailed plan?
Well, we did have engagement locally with Eskom yesterday through our Kwanalu, the local agricultural union, and we made a number of suggestions there that we could contribute to supplementing this energy supply into the grid. We can look at ways of scheduling the load shedding that would enable growers to utilize the power when it is available and for periods of time that make it viable to irrigate. And we would be open to any kind of dialogue and discussion with government to find ways to mitigate the impact and to help to supplement the energy crisis that we have.
All right, Andrew Russel, good to speak to you tonight. Thank you very much for your time.